Hey there, Pastor Marc here. It's our prayer that this message would encourage and equip you in your relationship with Jesus. We're able to provide this content due to the joyful generosity of our financial partners. And if you'd be willing to join that tribe and help get some sermons like this around the world, you can donate at harvestbaptist.info/give. God bless. To begin today with a story, it is a true story about a fifth grade teacher by the name of Mrs. Newberry. Mrs. Newberry loved her students. She loved not only to teach them academics, but she was concerned about their lives and who they were as people and their character growing. And she noticed one year that there was a lot of teasing going on within her fifth grade class, as fifth graders often would do. And she decided that she didn't really like that culture, and she wanted to hopefully not just put an end to that, but to create a culture where words of honor and gratitude were very common. So she decided one day to have all the students come in, and she gave them all blank sheets of paper, other than at the top of the sheet of paper was the name of another student. And the assignment was to write down the things that you appreciated about whatever student was on your piece of paper, the things that even would maybe make them special. So the students began their assignment, and they began to write and list down the things that they appreciated and were special about this particular individual. Mrs. Newberry, as a wise teacher would do, collected them all. She didn't just say, give them to your neighbor, because she knew some kids are going to have 10 things and some kids are going to have 2 things. Some kids are going to write down 8 things they appreciate, and then they're going to try like a poor attempt at humor, and they're going to poke fun at another kid. So she decided that she was going to take them all home, edit them a little bit, take out the things that weren't that complimentary, even add some of her own, and be sure that each kid had a good piece of paper and brought it back the next day. And to her surprise, it not only helped the classroom, but it completely changed the environment in the classroom. And kids were far more complimentary and gracious, and words of honor became commonplace. This was something that she appreciated so much that she decided to do it every year. And every year, sometime in the first quarter, as the kids began to get chippy and catty, she decided to pull it back out and they do the exercise. So she did this for years. Eventually, Mrs. Newberry passed, and people came to her funeral, including many of her students. And not at the funeral, but at the graveside, someone began to share how much they appreciated the exercise in fifth grade of words of encouragement. And wouldn't you know it, someone over on the side pulled out his wallet. He was grown now, he was a businessman. And out from his wallet, he pulled out this piece of paper, crinkled, wrinkled, folded, almost falling apart. And he said, I still carry with me to this day my piece of paper. And in some of the hardest times of life, I've pulled it out and I've gone back to these words of encouragement and affirmation, and they have helped get me through hard times. Someone else piped up because he was willing to be vulnerable enough and said, I think that I chose my profession because of that piece of paper in fifth grade, that it had on there, Linda, you have a way for being sensitive and kind to people when they're hurting. And she said, I'm a nurse today probably because of that one line who affirmed who I was. Someone else said, I don't have it with me, but underneath the glass on my desk, the glass top is that piece of paper, and I see it every single day when I go to work. And they began to share what an impact these words of encouragement had had on them. My wife and I tried an exercise like this with our children. We do it sporadically, but recently we were at the dinner table and we said, okay, encouragement game. You have to pick somebody else at the table, mom, dad, sibling, doesn't matter, pick anyone else, and you have to say something kind about them or something you appreciate about them or something that you're grateful for about them. So we did a couple, and my kids are young, so there was some mom made a great dinner or something like that, things that were easy. But sure enough, one of my boys, who will remain nameless, looked at his sister and said, Willow, I am grateful that you're a little less annoying than you used to be. That was his words of encouragement. Son, you missed the assignment. That's not what we're looking for. Mrs. Newberry was onto something. She found out that not only do people need words of encouragement, but if you can find a way to encourage them, they'll never forget you. No one's ever been too encouraged. And this morning, I want to talk to you on our Friend and Food Truck Day. I know many of you, but I also don't know a lot of the faces here because you're a friend. Someone invited you. I want to talk to you about mastering the art of encouraging friendship. How do you become an encouraging friend? And there's a beautiful case study in the Bible of a man who was an encouraging friend to the nth degree. You may have heard him before. His name is Joseph, but they didn't call him Joseph. They called him by his nickname. And his nickname, more or less, was Mr. Encourager. You'll find his story in Acts chapter number 4, and we're just going to take a little survey of his life, these little snippets of his life, and see how masterful this man was at being an encouraging friend. Look in Acts chapter number 4. We're introduced to this man in verse number 36. If you don't have it, we'll put it on the screen for you so you can read it with us. This is from the Bible. Acts 4, it says this, and Joseph, now that's Greek for Joseph. We would say it as Joseph. The Greek way of saying it is Joseph. Joseph, we would say, who by the apostles was surnamed Barnabas. So he received a surname as a second name. We would think of our surname as our last name or our second name. My first name is Marc, my surname is Likins. But a surname is just a second name, or you could even say a nickname. They nicknamed him Barnabas. Why Barnabas? Well, if you interpret Barnabas, it means the son of consolation, or the son of comfort, or the son of encouragement. We would say it this way, Captain Encouragement, Mr. Encourager. He was so encouraging, he had such a knack for it, that they began not only to nickname him this, they just began to call him this. This just kind of became his perfunctory name. It was Barnabas, the son of comfort and consolation. We learned that he is a Levite, so he's a Jewish man, and of the country of Cyprus. So he didn't live in Israel. He was from Cyprus, still an island in the Mediterranean, just south of Turkey or west of Syria. It still exists to this day. He's from Cyprus, and it says, having land, he sold it, and he brought the money and laid it at the apostles' feet. Now, remember that selling the land part for later. We'll come back to that. But this guy had such an amazing knack for uplifting and encouraging people that they decided to name him Mr. Encourager. How did he do this? You know, what was his pattern? How did he go about doing this? And you'll find several different examples. I want to give you 5 different moments from this man's life on how he was an encouraging friend, and I think that you can learn from them and apply them to your own life. First is he was a friend finder. If you would, turn over just a couple pages from Acts 4 to Acts 9. We are not just introduced to this man, now we're told a bit more about this man, Barnabas, and how he developed a friendship with a man by the name of Saul. Now Saul, who is also known as Paul, was enemy number 1 for the church. So in the early days, the church was growing, and the Jewish leaders and the Roman leaders, neither of them knew what to do with this church other than try to stamp it out. The church was this threat to the power brokers of the day, and there was a tremendous amount of persecution that came their way. Saul was like the poster child for persecuting the church. If you had maybe the evening news on, Paul would have been the guy who was there on the news saying, hey, we got to get rid of these Christians. They're a threat to us. Here's the hotline. If you know one or work with one, call them in and we'll go take care of them. Paul wasn't a very intelligent man. He was a very powerful man, had lots of tools and people and money at his disposal. He was very connected. He was both a Jewish and a Roman citizen. That was hard to come by in those days. But Paul spent his time and his energy trying to stamp out the church. He imprisoned church people. He murdered church people and martyred them. He was so ardently against the church. And you would have thought if there was ever an unlikely convert for Christianity, it's that Paul guy. But sure enough, Saul has this experience with Jesus himself. And he goes all in, full-fledged Team Jesus. But as you can imagine, there were people in the church that were very hesitant. They were very skittish on, I don't know that we can trust this guy. He says that he's on our team, but I think this is a ploy. I think he's out to get us. He's going to infiltrate us. He's going to learn who the leaders are and where they live and all about us, and then he's going to turn on us. So here's the story in Acts 26, with that as the background. When Saul was come to Jerusalem, he essayed or wanted to join himself to the disciples, but they were all afraid of him and believed not that he was a disciple. I'm not buying it, pal. Like, get away from us, steer clear of this guy. But verse 27, Barnabas took him and brought him to the apostles and declared unto them how he, Paul, had seen the Lord in the way, and that he, Jesus, had spoken to him, and how he, Paul, had preached boldly at Damascus in the name of Jesus. Now, what's happening here? Barnabas finds the person that everyone else is sure to avoid, and he reaches out and finds them, and he includes him. Barnabas takes the guy who's on the outs, he takes the guy who's ostracized, he takes the one that no one wants to be around, and he says, I will go be your friend. No one else will sign up for this job. No one else will stand shoulder to shoulder with you, but I will be your friend. I will stand shoulder to shoulder with you. And he goes and he finds a friend. What an example. You know, tribalism and cliques are something that start at a very early age. Many of us can reflect back to the middle school lunchroom, where at elementary it's not nearly as much, but once you get into middle school and you start to get into high school, all of a sudden there's that table and that table and that table, right? Any of you remember this? Some of you are like, stop talking about it. This is terrible memories. Because there's the cool kids or the popular kids or the jocks, or here's the cheerleading table, there's the loners over there. You have all these cliques, and it's hard to be accepted into one. Many of you know what it's like to be on the outside of a group and want to get in, but they won't accept you in. You know what that's like? This was Saul in this moment. Now, Saul becomes this apostle that's amazing, that many Christians today would look at and say, man, I don't know that I could ever be like Saul. But I would tell you, Saul would never be Saul if it wasn't for Barnabas. Because Barnabas finds him and reaches out and decides, I'm going to include this guy. He finds a friend. Some people have a knack for finding friends. And those people oftentimes not only have more friends, but they have richer friendship. You know, there is an art to finding friends. We're told in Proverbs that if you have friends, a man that has friends must show himself friendly. Well, how do you be friendly? You know, what exactly does that mean? Is there a way to go about finding friends, being even what I would call a top-notch friend finder? I'm going to give you 5 real quick ways that you can practically find friends. One is the 3-foot, 10-foot rule. I don't know if you've ever heard of the 3-foot, 10-foot rule, but 3 feet means if someone's within 3 feet of me, I'm going to give them a proper greeting. I'm going to shake their hand. I'm going to look them in the eye. I'm going to get their name. I'm going to hug them perhaps. I am going to give them a proper greeting if they're within 3 feet of me. 10 feet means I'm going to at least acknowledge them. I'm going to wave at them. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. The 3-foot, 10-foot rule. Now, that's hard when you're in a group like this. But if you will do your best, even in a room like this, or in a lobby, or while you're at food trucks today, I'm in line, someone's behind me, I don't know who this person is. Guess who will make more friends? The person who turns around and says, hey, I'm Marc, what's your name? How you doing? Good to meet you, where are you from? Like, people who are friendly in that way will make more friends. And Barnabas reaches out. I would say don't just do the 3-foot, 10-foot rule, but smiling is a way to make friends. So I love, Todd does the announcements for us, you know, occasionally, and he did them this morning. And one of the things I love about Todd is that he has this giant, awesome smile. One that I'm like, I wish that my smile was that big, because smiling is infectious and contagious. It helps you make friends. I would tell you, sit and park in new places. You know what you'll find, because we're creatures of habit. You know, those of you that sit over here probably normally sit over here. You know what you'll find over there? A whole new set of potential friends. And if you sit back there, you know what you'll find up here? A whole new set of potential friends. When you change it up, you sit in a different place, you park in a different place at work, you'll find new people and new introductions and new connections. Like, make it your goal to go find people. I don't do this nearly as much anymore in terms of where I sit because I need to be able to get up onto this platform quickly from time to time. But for many years, when I wasn't up here preaching, my goal in church was to never sit in the same place other than one common denominator. Find someone new and sit with them. That was my goal every week. I didn't accomplish my goal every week, but my goal was to find someone who was new and go sit wherever they were sitting and try to be a friend to them. Be a friend finder. That was Barnabas. So 3-foot, 10-foot rule. Smile at people. Sit and park in new places. Learn and use names. This is harder for some than others based off of what's going on upstairs or how good your memory is. But the sweetest word in any language, they say, is someone's name. Learn their name. Use their name. Give compliments. Give words of honor. Give gratitude. Find someone today. Hey, nice shoes. I like those. Where'd you get them? I promise you they won't be mad at you because of that. Gratitude. Hey, thank you for helping serve today. I see you setting up the tents and the tables and you're cleaning up. Thank you for being a blessing and for helping today. Give words of honor. Man, I see you every week. I don't know you well, but I know you're a single mom trying to bring your kids to church. And man, hats off to you. Like, I have so much admiration. I know that's hard for you to be willing to do that. I have so much admiration for that. Words of honor, those go a long way with people. It's a way to go find and meet and make new friends, whether you're introverted or extroverted. Barnabas was a friend finder. Barnabas was more than a friend finder, though. He was a bridge builder. If you turn a page or two over, you'll find in Acts 11, Barnabas, with now his not-so-new friend, Saul, he now does something different. He doesn't just find him, but he builds a bridge, so to speak. Look in Acts chapter number 11. The story is that like revival's breaking out in this place called Antioch. And the Christians in Jerusalem are a little bit suspect of it, and they want to go check it out. You know, let's see what's happening. Do these people like actually believe on Jesus? Is their doctrine right? Is this sincere? Is this a cult? Like, let's figure out what's happening here. So sure enough, they send someone to go find out what's happening. They send Barnabas. And here's what happens when Barnabas gets there, verse 23 of Acts 11. Who, when Barnabas came, he had seen the grace of God. He saw that this was authentic and real, so he was glad, and he exhorted them all that with purpose of heart they would cleave unto the Lord. So he encourages them, he gives them a word, hey, hold on to Jesus and don't let go. And here's what happens, verse 24. He was a good man. He was full of the Holy Ghost and faith. Much people were added unto the Lord. Then departed Barnabas to Tarsus to seek Saul, the same guy that he introduced to the apostles in Jerusalem. What's going on here? Well, he found him, and he brought him unto Antioch. And it came to pass that a whole year they assembled themselves with the church and taught much people. And the disciples were called Christians first in Antioch. Barnabas gets to Antioch. He discovers that this is sincere. He discovers also that these people need some help. So what does he do? He not only decides to stay and to help them, but he goes and he finds old Saul and he brings him in and allows Saul to help alongside of him. Barnabas is finding a church that needs a minister, and he's bridging the gap between them. Barnabas is finding even a church that needs a congregant, and he's bridging the gap between them and saying, hey, I know a need. I think you would fit the need. Let me put you all together, and let's see what happens here. This is kind of spiritual matchmaking of sorts. He's taking someone who has a need and someone who would fit the need and saying, let's bridge this, and let's come together. Any of you have a friend that always knows a guy? My dad's that way. It's like they know a guy for everything. Like I've always wanted to ride in a hot air balloon. I know a guy. He has a hot air balloon in his garage. He'll take you up tomorrow, right? I got moles in my backyard. I know a mole exterminator. It's what he does for a living. I'm going to Peru next week. I know a guy who goes to Peru every week. You should meet him. They just constantly know somebody. And they're great. They have this knack for taking whatever your need is and whoever can meet this need and putting them together, right? That's a good friend. That'll help you. That'll be a blessing to you. That'll be an encouragement to you. Some of you, you have friends that maybe invited you today, And they invited you because they want to hang out with you. They invited you because the food trucks are going to be fun and good and all that. But many times we do a friend and food trucks day like every year. And you know what we find every year? There are people who need a church and are looking for some place like this, and their friend reaches out and bridges the gap for them and is able to say, hey, I know a church. And we have people every single year that are like, I don't know what this place is. I don't know a lot about it, but I want to know more. That's why we have our Intro to Harvest class and would invite you to come to that first Sunday in October. What's happening there? Well, bridge building is happening there. Be a bridge builder. Don't just go find a friend over here and a friend over here. Even connect your friend groups. Hey, let me go introduce you to John. John, listen, I just met Tom. You guys should meet each other. You both own small businesses, and you're bridging gaps there. We just had, a couple months ago, our vacation Bible school here at the church. We do it every summer, and it's always a blast. I have hundreds and hundreds of kids. And if you're new, we love families and we love kids here. Between our academy and our kids programs, we try to invest in young people. We love it. And there were so many kids. I mean, this room was decorated. There were vines and monkeys and stuff all over the place. And they were singing and playing games and doing crafts, and they were learning. I mean, everyone was having a blast, really. But I noticed something about day 1 or 2, that there were people that came who maybe didn't come with a friend. And they were here. I mean, they're like first grade, second grade, whatever. But they're here, and you could kind of tell that they were having a good time, but they were off to themselves. Or I especially noticed that there were some families that were bringing maybe a sibling set of 3. And when you're in a new place, your siblings can rely on each other as much as siblings can fight with each other at times. When you get kind of into new territory, they cling to each other a little bit. But our vacation Bible school puts people into buckets. There's like the 4 and 5-year-old bucket, and then there's like the 1st and 2nd grade bucket, and the 3rd and 4th grade bucket. So many of these siblings were kind of separated from each other. And I noticed a little bit of loneliness. So about day 2, we had dinner as a family, and I told my kids, I said, kids, I have a challenge for you tomorrow. We're going to VBS, and my kids were like stoked. I mean, our kids, if we scheduled family vacation on Vacation Bible School Week, they would crucify me. They'd be so mad because they love it. I said, we're going tomorrow. I've seen, you guys have had a blast. I've seen you with your friends because they all have their little friend group. I said, tomorrow I want you to find somebody who's in your section, in your grade, who doesn't have a friend. They look like they're by themselves. I want you to get your head up, and I want you to look for somebody. And you don't have to go spend the whole day with them. Just bring them into your friend group. You don't have to say no to your friends and say yes to them. Put them together. And wouldn't you know it, little Willow, she's in 2nd grade, or was in 2nd grade at the time, my daughter, I watched her every day thereafter go find someone who was kind of by themselves or in a row by themselves or a little bit lonely, and I watched her bring her in to her little friend group. And boy, it put so much joy in my heart to watch my child go include someone else and connect them to their friends. If that as a father puts joy in my heart to see my daughter do that, would it stand to reason that God is our Father, it would put joy in his heart when he sees his children go reach out to someone else, make a friend of them, and connect them to other people? Do you think that would put joy in his heart? Sure it would. Barnabas was that sort of encouraging person. He found friends, he built bridges, and he had this knack for connecting people to other people. You also find, though, that Barnabas was a load lifter. If you keep reading in that text we were just reading, the next verse tells us this. It says, in these days came prophets from Jerusalem unto Antioch. This is Acts 11, verse 27. There stood up one of them named Agabus, great name, by the way, Agabus, signified by the Spirit that there should be great dearth throughout all the world, which came to pass in the days of Claudius Caesar. So basically, this guy stands up and is like, listen, I'm telling you, there's a drought coming. Food's going to be hard to come by, and it's coming. And sure enough, it happened. So, verse 29, the disciples, every man according to his ability, determined to send relief unto the brethren which dwelt in Judea. So they're in Antioch, and further south in Judea, it's worse. The drought is worse, food is hard to come by, so they're taking up like a collection. And they're giving generously to try to help these people. And wouldn't you know it, verse number 30, which also they did, and they sent it unto the elders by the hands of Barnabas and Saul. Here's this moment where there's this group of people going through a tough time. And Barnabas not only steps up to contribute himself, but they somehow elect him the treasurer, so to speak, and say, why don't you go deliver it for us? We'll trust you to get this there safely and to go give generously to other people and to help them get up under their load. We read in Acts chapter 4, I told you we go back to it at the beginning of the sermon, that there was this guy named Joseph, and they nicknamed him Barnabas, and that means that he was Captain Encourager. But what did it say? It said that he had a lot of land, and he sold it, and he went and he laid it at the apostles' feet. That's like our way of saying he put it in the offering plate. He went and he gave it to the church. Now, why would he do that? Well, to lift burdens, to be a blessing. You say, well, I don't got a lot of land I can sell. Fine. No one's saying you have to sell your land. But do you have friendship you can give? You got a word of wisdom you can give? You have some love that you can give? You have a skill set where you can help them with whatever it is that they're struggling with right now? There's lots of ways to lift loads. And Barnabas was willing to get up under the load of some people that were going through a tough time and to see a need and meet a need. And not only see a need and meet a need, but to get other people involved to help them meet the need. He was that sort of encourager. He was that sort of friend. Ever had a friend who was kind of, in your estimation, maybe a nominal friend? You were friends, but you weren't like close friends. And then you went through a trial, and to your surprise, man, they showed up and they put up and they were with you through that trial in a way that was far beyond what you had expected of them, and all of a sudden your friendship went completely to another level. That's what happens when you are a load lifter. You start to be a real friend to people. Now, I don't know what friends you have and what trial they're going through, but I know this much. You have a load that someone could lift for you. I know that. No matter who you are in this room, every single one of you have a burden or a trial or something that if somebody else got up under that load with you, it'd be a blessing to you. But I want you to set that to the side for a minute. Put your own load and your own burdens to the side for a moment. Who in your life do you know that is going through a hard time? Now, I don't know who God's bringing to mind right now, but whoever's coming to your mind right now, remember that name and ask yourself this question. How could I help them? How can I bear a burden for them? Maybe it's just a note, it's a card with some words of encouragement, and you send some words. Maybe you show up and you're able to help them with whatever that project is or whatever it is practically. Maybe it's a gift card. Maybe it's a financial gift. Maybe it's a problem that you help them solve. I don't know exactly what it is. Whatever's coming to your mind, lean into that. But I will encourage you to remember that person, and this week, go try to be a blessing to them. Just think what would happen in our community if everyone had a Barnabas mentality. I'm looking for a friend, I'm looking for a load to bear, and I want to go help somebody else. It would be a blessing to live in a community like that, would it not? Go be a load lifter. You know, D.L. Moody said it this way. He said, do all the good you can to all the people you can in all the ways you can as long as you ever can. You can't do everything. And sometimes the needs of the world seem so immense, like I'm supposed to solve like global hunger and it's all these needs. Listen, you can't do everything, but don't let the reality that you can't do everything stop you from doing something. Whatever you can do, D.L. Moody said, do all of it and do all the good you can to all the people you can, all the ways you can, as long as you ever can. Go help somebody. John Maxwell, the leadership guru, has a lot of books that he's written, but his most famous book is probably the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And in that book, he describes people and our friends kind of in 4 buckets. He says there are people that actually divide, there's people that subtract, there's people that add, there's people that multiply. And he talks about the people who divide as when you're under a load, they're like kicking at your shins, or they're poking fun at you, or they're not only not helpful, but they're actually making it harder for you. And those are the people that you avoid. Then there's people that subtract. They never get under the load with you, but they don't kick at you either. They just kind of stand there and watch you, but they never offer any assistance. And those are the people that you tolerate. But then there are people that add. They'll get up under the load with you. They'll help you. They'll be a burden bearer alongside of you. And man, you enjoy those people. But every once in a while, you have a friend who multiplies. They will take the load off of you and say, listen, we got this. You go focus on something else. And those are the friends that you value. And his encouragement is be an adder and a multiplier. Be someone that people enjoy and value. Be a friend who is constantly getting under burdens with other friends. If you will do that, you will encourage other people, I promise you. Not only was Barnabas this friend finder and bridge builder and this load lifter, but he was also a failure fixer. And this is one of my favorites. Keep turning a couple pages and go to Acts 15. You see Barnabas again, and you see his friend Saul again. The one that he made a friend out of, the one that he built a bridge with, and the one that he even ran an errand up to Jerusalem or down to Jerusalem with. But here's a moment where they begin to disagree. And I love this moment of honesty because real friends have disagreements. Sometimes there's tension. Sometimes there's an issue that you don't see eye to eye on. That's real life. That's real life in a marriage. That's real life with parenting and children, that you see it different ways. And this was the case with these 2 guys. And here's the moment that happened in Acts 15, verse number 36. Some days after, Paul said to Barnabas, Paul is Saul, he said, let us go again and visit our brethren in every city where we've preached the word of the Lord and see how they do. Hey, let's go to all these places that have churches and Christians, the places that we know these people. Let's do a little tour. Let's go check in on them and see how they're doing. So verse 37, Barnabas determined to take with him John, whose surname was Mark. His name, John Mark is what they call him. But Paul thought it not good to take him with him. Why? Because John Mark departed from them from Pamphylia and went not with them to the work. So here's the story. Saul and Barnabas are together, and true to form, Barnabas and Saul, they're reaching out, they're bringing people in, they're including them, and they include this young up-and-coming Christian by the name of John Mark. But John Mark decides to leave them. It says when they're in Pamphylia before they started the work. Basically, in Paul's estimation, John Mark, we've been there, done that. And I do not want to do the same song, second verse. We have tried this kid out. He's not ministry material. He already flaked out on us once. I'm not giving him another chance. I'm not doing it. He burned us already. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I'm not getting fooled again. And Barnabas is like, no, let's give the dude another chance. Let's include him. I know he left. I know he messed up. I know he flaked out. But people deserve a second chance. Let's do it. And it says in verse number 39, the contention was so sharp between them that they departed asunder one from another. They split up. They parted ways. And Barnabas took Mark, and he sailed into Cyprus. Barnabas said, I'm line in the sand. I'm giving this dude a second chance, whether you want to or not. And Paul said, line in the sand, I'm not giving him a second chance. They said, well, I guess we're going to agree to disagree. And they went their separate ways, but he took him under his wing. I'm not big on telling blonde jokes. I'm trying to remember in my pastorate if I've ever told a blonde joke. I don't think I have. Because here's what happens. You get laughter from like 70% of people, but then you tick off 30% of people who are blondes, okay? So forgive me in advance. I'm going to do something I normally don't do. I'm going to tell you a blonde joke, okay? There was a convention that they put together for blondes. They decided they were going to prove once and for all that blondes were just as intelligent as brunettes and redheads and anybody else. So they filled the convention center, 10,000 blondes. And the speaker said, you know what? Let's put it to the test. Give me your best and your brightest. So they narrowed it down, and they volunteered one blonde as tribute, and up she came. I said, all right, I have a test for you. What is 100 plus 100? She thought for a second, and she said, 1,000. And immediately, 10,000 blondes knew, like, she got it wrong. And they all started chanting, give her another chance, give her another chance. He said, okay, I'll give her another chance. I'll make it a little simpler. What's 5 times 5? She thought for a second. She said, 15. Immediately, 10,000 blondes started chanting, give her another chance, give her another chance. He said, okay, I'll give her another chance. It's simple. What is 2 plus 2? She thought for just a second. She said, I got this one for sure. 4. Immediately, 10,000 blondes started chanting, give her another chance, give her another chance. They proved once and for all. You say, what does that have to do with Barnabas? Barnabas, I couldn't find a better joke to set this up, okay? Barnabas was the guy who was constantly chanting for other people, give him another chance, give him another chance. Like, that was his MO. That's what he wanted. He wanted people to have another chance, which is such a Christian thing to do. You know, I get so irked when Christians misrepresent the gospel and they misrepresent Jesus, and they look down their nose and they're judgy, and if anyone makes any mistake, they cut people off, they discard relationships quickly, and they can never forgive, and they can never give people another chance. That irks the fire out of me because it's so anti-Christian. Honestly, in this moment, Paul is not exhibiting a Christian heart because he was the one who needed a huge second chance, and Barnabas reached out to him and connected him to the early church. And now John Mark, he never murdered anybody, but he did something, he flaked out. You know, he was a wimp, whatever. But in this moment, Paul was unwilling to give another chance. But Barnabas is a true friend, an encouraging friend. Not only does he give him another chance, but thank God he did. Because John Mark went on to write a letter you may have read before. It's something that we call the Gospel of Mark, or you could call the Gospel of John Mark. Does the Gospel of Mark ever come about if not for Barnabas giving another chance? Probably not. I can't say for certain, but probably not. Thank God for Barnabas of the world who will say, listen, I know you messed up, you did offend me, you did hurt me, but I'm willing to look past it, and I'm willing to give you another chance. He was a failure fixer in that way. He wanted to help other people. He was an encouraging friend. But lastly, and you wouldn't really understand Barnabas if you didn't understand this. Sure, he was a friend finder. Yeah, he was a bridge builder. Yeah, he was a load lifter, and yeah, he was a failure fixer. But Barnabas was a gospel giver. At the center of who Barnabas was, when you read about his life in the book of Acts, you find that he had understood the gospel. The good news of Jesus is how you could say the gospel. He had understood and believed the good news of Jesus, and he had devoted his life to giving other people this good news. You see little examples of this all over the place. For example, in Acts 13, this guy by the name of Sergius Paulus says, hey, bring Barnabas in and Saul, his buddy. Bring them in here because I want to learn the word of God. He knew Barnabas had a reputation for being someone that knew the scriptures and could tell them. You find, for example, in Acts chapter number 15, that Paul and Barnabas continued in Antioch. And what did they do? They were teaching and preaching the word of the Lord with many others also. Every time you see Barnabas, you find this common denominator that he was willing to tell people, look, Jesus is different. I want you to know about the Lord Jesus. I want you to know that his words were profound. I want you to know that his works were powerful. I want you to know that his love is amazing. And I want you to know about Jesus. He was constantly telling people about Jesus. He was wanting to give them the good news of Jesus over and over and over again. I would encourage you on 2 fronts. That's 4 actually. 2 fronts. If you're a Christian in the room and you know Jesus, do not dilute your friendship to just finding friends and introducing them to other friends and getting under a load with them and even forgiving them at times. All of those things are valid and awesome, but do not dilute it to just that. If you're a Christian, you have a responsibility to give the good news that you know, to tell other people, listen, Jesus in so many ways has changed my life. I want you to know about that. Don't ever be rude. Don't ever twist somebody's arm. Don't ever try to shove it down their throat, but do always give. It's up to them if they take it or not, but always give. Be a gospel giver. And if you're in the room and maybe you're not a Christian, I don't know your story, all of you. I know many of you, your faces, your names, your stories, your backgrounds, but many of you I don't. Understand that you may have had a friend that invited you here because they wanted you to get the gospel. Yeah, sure, get some food and maybe even get some Steelers tickets if you win the cornhole tournament. But it could very well be all cards on the table, but they wanted you to know about Jesus. And I'm here to tell you about Jesus. I can't be a Barnabas to you in every single way this week. I'll do my best. Our church will do our best, but I can be a Barnabas to you in this way right now. I can give you the gospel. The good news of Jesus is that Jesus loves us and comes for us to save us. He sees us in a mess in our sin, unable to forgive ourselves, unable to redeem ourselves, unable to somehow establish a right relationship with God. And he comes and he dies for sins as a sacrifice, as a payment for your sins and for mine. He is buried. He raises from the dead miraculously. That's why we believe what he said, because he rose from the dead. And he says, if you will put your faith and your trust in me and in me alone, then I will save you from that. I will forgive you of that. I will redeem you of that. And I will give you everlasting life. That is the offer of Jesus to everybody. It is a free gift. His eternal life, even heaven as your home, it is not a reward for the righteous people. It's a gift for the guilty people. It is not clean yourself up, do your best, put yourself together, and maybe God will accept you. That is not what Jesus ever said. Jesus always said, you're guilty and you're wrong, but I'll give you another chance. I will forgive you. I will accept you. I will be a friend finder. I will bridge the gap between you and God. I will fix your failures and your mistakes. I will do it for you freely and graciously if you'll believe on me. And if you've never put your faith and your trust on Jesus, then man, make today your day. Make today the day that you say, Jesus, I'm calling out on you to save me from my sin. Forgive me. I put my trust in you and in only you. Make today that day where you not only get the gospel, but you receive it and you want it. Our world could use more encouraging friends. Our world could use more Mrs. Newberrys, more Barnabases, Captain Encouragement. Your friends could use it and so could mine. May each and every one of us this week do our best to not only deliver and be an encouraging friend, may we also be the ones who want to deliver the good news of Jesus over and over and over again. If you never have believed on Jesus, we're going to pray in just a minute just to let you know what's coming. We're almost done, but I always end a sermon with prayer. And I even give a little bit of time for people to reflect, to stop, to kind of quiet their soul, and to ask, like, what does this mean for me? How can I apply this? And if you're a Christian in the room, I want you to think of the person that you could be a load lifter for, someone you could be a good friend to right now who's going through it, and I want you to pray for them. And then I want you to go help them this week. And if you're not a Christian in the room, I want in these moments it to be your opportunity to put your faith and your trust squarely on the Lord Jesus Christ.